Hello. We're here with Ragani again. We were together a few weeks ago. Ragani is a famous singer and is an acupuncturist and all that. And as far as our connection, was a long time friend and student of with Swami Rama. And so that's kind of what brings us here together to have a chat. And I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but when we talked the last time afterwards, she said something about, because of her acupuncture work that she does with clients, something about physical symptoms and the sources, which of course has a lot to do with yoga, which is samskaras and deep impressions and all that kind of stuff. So, hi, Ragani.
Hello, Swami Jay. How are you?
I'm okay. We're just sitting here. We just had some wonderful homemade by Matri dosas.
Oh, yum.
Yum. They were very yummy.
I love dosas.
And a nice little treat of get ready for this chocolate hummus. Have you ever had chocolate hummus?
That sounds holiday-ish.
Holiday-ish? It's absolutely delicious.
What's actually have chocolate and beans in it?
Yes. It sounds very strange, but she made these with pinto beans and a little bit of dates for sweetness and cacao powder. And it's to kill for.
Wow.
I mean, it's really yummy. And so there's Nellie. Hi, Nellie. And Raj is with us, and Ramanas is with us, and Scott is with us. And so, hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And Nilesh is sitting over here beside me, and Pooja is over on that couch, and Matri is over on that couch.
Hi, everyone.
So, dive in. Anybody got anything you want to say? Hi, Walter. There's another Dutchie with us. You want to say, ask Ragani. She's a neat woman and knows a lot of Swami Rama stories and a lot about sadhana and a lot about her profession as a acupuncturist therapist, and is a relatively famous kirtan walla. Has CDs out and does touring around the U.S. and parts of the world leading kirtans. We saw her online. Where was that you were a few days ago?
Yeah, it just popped in my notifications. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Beautiful really kirtan. Lots of stuff going on. So
yeah, one of my favorites. So.
What's one of your favorites, Mom?
The Mohammed. It's just wow.
One of the songs beautiful. Was her favorite.
Oh.
The Ramwari.
Which one?
Mohan Murari.
Oh, Murari.
Yeah.
Mohan Murari. That was one when she had that playing and she turned it on and you were on there. That's the one that prompted me to write you the note that I can hear Swami Rama in the background.
Yeah. Well, you know, he used to do that song a lot. And I wrote a few extra variations of chord progressions in the top part once we got the Mohan Murari part going, because I love that. I love that chant. It reminds me of him too. So it's interesting that he actually wrote on that chant.
Yeah, no, it was very, very beautiful. Actually, I downloaded your live and I excerpted that as PDF, and I'm doing my workout on it now.
Very nice. Yeah, she
downloaded it.
Oh, I stole them.
Without copyright permission.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to live Satya.
Yeah, well, you know, there's an old saying that it's much easier to get forgiveness than permission.
I see.
You ask permission for copyright, you don't get it. But if you violate it,
it's private use.
I've heard that before. No. There's a few people who've gotten in some bad trouble with the ask for permission versus ask for forgiveness. But
yeah, no, that's true too. But it's just one of those old myths. That's kind of fun. And there's a Jackie Ratcliffe.
Hi, Jackie.
Say hi, Jackie.
It's fun to see everybody live. Yeah. So, yes, we're ready?
We're ready. We're waiting for you. We're all ears.
So, if people might jump in the middle, if you have any questions too, I'd say feel free to throw them up on the screen. Swami Janeshwar can see them, and then obviously sometimes I can see them as well.
If I see it, I click on it, like I click on Jackie, and then you get to see it.
And then I see it. Okay.
And if I forget to click on it, then you don't see it as clearly.
But then I help him remember that.
But then Matri helps me.
So I just want to say a disclaimer, just to make it clear that this is not going to be in replacement of proper health care or any kinds of things that may warrant actually needing treatments from doctors or physicians or those kinds of things. So I don't want people feeling like, throw away your meds and go ahead, give this a try, and then you're all set. Because all of these things integrated in the practice that I do with acupuncture, holistic health, they're all tied together. I respect Western medicine. I feel there's a lot of value that is given for relief of symptoms, surgery, modern medical technologies and stuff. And I also, of course, very much am aligned with the holistic form of medicine as well. So that being said, a lot of times when people come in my office, they come in with symptoms, and I'm going to be talking just about basic symptoms this time, meaning not so much the psychological issues or things that feel like they're of a vague nature where you can't put your finger on whatever's going on mentally or emotionally. This is going to be more for physical symptoms, like I've got back pain, my knee hurts, I have shoulder issues, my stomach doesn't feel good, my face, my jaw, whatever, specific kinds of symptoms. And all of you following along here, I will invite you to participate if you want. You might take a few notes. There's a 3-step process I take people through. I use this for myself as well to understand what's going on behind any kind of symptom that shows up that seems like it comes out of the blue, or as Abraham Hicks says, it comes out of the oblivion, which I like better because it usually just, we're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So as it comes out of the oblivion and into our awareness, then there's a lot of clues that show up. Each symptom that we have is full of the signature from where it came. By that I mean, in the law of physics, we'd say that energy always precedes matter. That's a yoga law as well. We'd say that before there's something physical, there has to be an energetic form or energetic flow there for that physical thing to show up. Physical things just don't appear out of nowhere. So energy always precedes matter, and it's a continuum. So something that shows up first energetically may be something that we feel as a symptom, as something that's just a felt sense, meaning something doesn't feel right, but there's no diagnosis, there's nothing physical, they can't find anything wrong, but I just feel something isn't right. That then progresses. If that continues along the same current, then maybe now it feels like something isn't right, and now, okay, now there's actually something that they can see, touch, taste, feel, a diagnosis, something that's actually there. And it may be something that shows up then physically, where you can actually, see it as a bump, a lump, arthritis, things like that, and it's not just something you experience as pain.
Mm-hmm.
So we've all had symptoms. It's part of being human. That's part of our learning tool here on this physical plane, is to have these physical things that can then show us what energetic patterns are continuing, what energetic patterns are then sustaining these symptoms. It's my firm belief that no matter how chronic physical symptoms are that we have, if the energetic pattern is not there to sustain it, the physical symptoms will no longer be sustained. They'll no longer be there. And that explains a lot of things for me when we look at things that we would call miraculous healing, where things are there and then suddenly they disappear. Prayer sessions, and suddenly people have a miraculous healing and they're no longer there. It's because the energetic component of what was sustaining it has shifted. It's not sustaining that physical symptom anymore. Okay, so that's
how that works, isn't it?
What's that?
I said it's amazing how that works. I don't know how it works, but I guess it's amazing that it happens.
It is amazing. And what I find most unbelievable is that if we can change our mind, that the physical experience that we have can also change.
Yeah.
You know, we change the mind and the feeling that's in our mind. And by mind, I mean not just so much what we're saying to ourselves, because we can change that without a lot of effect by just telling ourselves things, but then not really believing it. But there's when the energetics of it changes, meaning the feeling or the felt sense that's in that. Eugene Genlin used to talk, he just passed away recently, but he was somebody I studied with years ago, and he talked about what was called a felt sense that we have inside of us that I've extrapolated to everything that I experience in the world, meaning if I'm in the grocery store, I'm looking at two apples and they look identical, I might have a feeling, one of them just feels like it's drawing me more, I'll pick that apple. And that felt sense that we have, that's a really kind of mundane way of explaining it, but there's a felt sense we have about all of our symptoms as well. So.
Sounds very yogic.
Yes, it all comes out of yoga. I mean, yoga explains just about everything as far as I'm concerned. There isn't anything I haven't found that it doesn't explain. So what I've teased out now in the practice of doing this acupuncture for the last, I don't know, almost 20 years now, is when we have a symptom, we often feel that it's difficult to put our finger on why it's there. It feels like it's there, it's annoying us, it's bothering us, it's troubling us, but it's hard to kind of assess, well, why did that show up and why is it still here? Why isn't it going away? I'm doing all these different treatments and none of them have an effect, or they work a little bit and then it comes back. So there's a pattern of this energetic flow. So here's what I do to understand what's behind all of that. The first thing I do, and this is step number one, is to let yourself speak about all of the phrases, words, associations that you have around that symptom. So for instance, someone who came into my office recently with sciatica said things like, well, it hurts on the back side where my low back is, but then it goes into my butt and down my leg. I have pain. It scares me because it feels like it won't go away. It comes out of nowhere. It shows up twice a year in the spring and fall. I don't know why it shows up. It feels like I can't put my foot down. It hurts when I do. I can't move forward or backwards when it's there. It's like I'm frozen in time. I can't actually shift. And then when it disappears, almost as quickly as it came, it's gone for months, and then suddenly it shows up again, and it's out of the blue, and it feels like, again, I'm waiting for that other shoe to fall. So all these phrases that we might use to describe a symptom, say, and some of the questions I'll ask myself to sort of tease that out is, where is it on the body? Meaning, is it back there somewhere where we can't reach it very well, or is it somewhere in plain sight, you know, on the front of our body, or is it on our face where it feels more vulnerable or exposed to the world where everybody else can see it too? Is it a place in the body that is that has movement? Meaning, is it in a joint, or is it in the middle of a bone that doesn't move? These are all clues as to what's going on and where it's coming from. Is it in a place where it has a different function? In other words, is it in a place in the throat where you might speak? Or is it in a place of the stomach where we digest things? So those are also clues, because, you know, somebody who may come in and say, well, I have stomach issues. I say, well, tell me about that. In your words, describe what kinds of things go on with your symptoms. They'd say, well, hurts in my stomach. It feels like something isn't digested there. It's always bloated. It feels it's always there. Even if I feel like I have a better day, it feels like it's always just sitting there. It never really clears. It feels like somebody punched me. It feels like, you know, all those kinds of things are really important to understand. What are the words or phrases we use to describe that match how we feel about those symptoms?
I'm curious about something, Ragani. Do you also coach the people in doing that process alone in their home as their own private form of internal dialogue? Is that part of what you're coaching them in, or is this is purely done in the clinical setting with you?
Both. So when people come in a clinical setting, a lot of them find that this is a really new idea, that the symptoms could be tied to anything energetically that they actually are sustaining. And so I'll walk them through initially so that they can start to feel it in their own body and start to make those connections first. But part of what I'm actually in the middle of writing a blog, book, whatever it's going to become, I don't know, about the process, because I want people to be able to ultimately do it themselves in their own homes. And so there are people who come in just for that kind of coaching to understand what it's connected to and to be able to learn how to do that in their own place, to go. It takes maybe a session or two and they can pretty much get it down. And then it's just a matter of tweaking things, and they might, come in just to kind of figure out if they get stuck in something, I can't connect this to anything. And, then we'll do a little bit of work around that. So yes, I do both.
Thank you. I was just curious about that.
Mm-hmm. So then some of those phrases and words that we use, this is probably the most time that we'd spend initially is just, and you can get a journal or get a piece of paper out and just start writing things down, because it helps to start to pull all those pieces together in terms of what it is that we feel or what we think we know about our symptom. In other words, where is it on the body? Is it hidden from our sight? Is it somewhere internal? Is it somewhere external on the skin that we can see it, where it's seen by the other people as well as us? Or is it somewhere hidden that's quieter or somehow feels like we can hide it? Or, all those things are really important to look at. Another piece of it is, what have we been told by the medical community? Because those also impact how we see it. Meaning, if somebody says, well, I'm bone on bone, that gives you a different image in your mind than the cartilage is, compressed. Or if they've said, they show you an MRI and they say, well, there's pieces that are missing, or something's fractured here, or it looks like it's very weak, or whatever it is that the medical community has told you about your symptoms, also are really important to add into that list, because they also play a role in how your understanding and the visual that you might have when somebody says, for instance, like, what's going on in your back? You might have an image of, oh, my disc is compressed, or it's disintegrated, or something's not right about it. It's, tilted one way or the other. Those things are also part of the exploration, as I call it. So I think that kind of outlines a number of what I do initially, just to understand briefly what's going on with the physical symptoms in terms of how we see it.
And so is that sort of, so to speak, what you said was step one of the 3 steps?
Yep, that's all step one. And it can be an ongoing process. Even as I take you through these 3 steps, it can be an ongoing process in the sense that you can go back and revisit parts as you learn or feel or experience different parts of those symptoms coming into your awareness. It then can add more to the process. Right, it's a process, and I use it a lot. I just used it this morning for something that went on with me, and I use this process a lot because it helps me. It really enriches my understanding of what my body's trying to tell me in terms of what I'm doing energetically in my life. So the step 2, this is the biggie, and this is the one that that can start to connect some dots, is taking all of that now, not going into any one specific piece of the symptoms, but taking all of those symptoms, the description of it. Ask yourself, what about my life reminds me of all of that? And that particular phrase, what about my life reminds me of all of that? Sometimes, for some people, it can be an instant thing where it feels, oh, of course, this is connected to this. For some people, it's not that clear. And here's how then I help to explore this piece of it for step 2. It's usually not something that is so far away in our mind that we're unaware of it, that it happened in our childhood, but we have no memory of it. And I say that because when it's present now, there's usually something now that's going on right now to sustain it. It's not to say that older things can't have an impact and that we have some scars or things that are present or secret or latent, that we don't have here and now as accessible to us. But for these particular symptoms, I found it really useful to stay in things that are more present in our life. So that's usually relationships, situations where we work, the feeling of whatever's going on in our work environment, places where we live, and things that are going on with where we live. Those are 3 big areas that I find address most frequently. What about my life reminds me of that? Did someone have a question?
There's
Oh, I
an
didn't
echo suddenly. I don't know where it came from.
Okay, I didn't know if that was somebody. It was just really loud here. So,
It's gone now. It was just there. Sometimes I've noticed this technology will do that for no explainable reason. All of a sudden, there's a few seconds of a very intense echo.
well,
And
we'll
then
assume that that's trying to emphasize what it is that I'm saying.
it was there for emphasis, huh?
It was there for emphasis.
Cool.
So when we start to think about what about our life reminds us of that, again, the relationships, the work environment, the living situation, the connections that we have, one thing that's really useful to know is that it's many times something that's not acceptable to speak about. Meaning, there's a reason why it became a symptom, a physical symptom, and that, let's say, for instance, we're in a relationship with our boss, and there's something that's gone on that's really uncomfortable, and yet, if we were to say something directly to our boss, we might lose our job. So there's a price to pay with that. So we kind of hold the feeling back, and meanwhile, that feeling is sustaining this energetic component that then becomes the symptom, that becomes something more physical. So in this exploration, knowing that this is a process that, as I do it with people in my office, I tell them, you can speak out loud to me if you want, or if you come upon something that feels like you don't want to speak about it, you don't have to speak out loud about it, but you can at least acknowledge it yourself.
Now, I'm curious, Ragani. This is just me and my curiosity, and maybe this is a silly question and doesn't matter at all. And if it is, I'll just be quiet. But I'm curious, as you are sitting there with your client doing the process that you just described, are you internally starting to think in terms of what you might do with that person in terms of acupuncture, in terms of energy or energy flows, and where you might stick an acupuncture needle or something like that? I don't know if that's a fair question, but it's popping into my mind. Whether you're doing something like that internally.
Absolutely. When they first come in, even when I'm talking to them on the phone, I will often try to get an energetic assessment in my mind of what's going on, because I'm aware that even the impressions I get as I speak to somebody on the phone, let's say without seeing them, many times I'll get what I call hits, or I'll get a sense of, okay, there's something going on in the low back. Even if they say, well, I have headache. And then they'll come in.
May I ask you a question on that? When you said, you just used as an example, something comes about lower back. Does that come as a concept in your mind, or as a sort of visualized thing in you where you're seeing their lower back? Or are you experiencing a sort of mirror image of awareness in your own lower back? I'm just curious what's going on inside of you when you're aware of that lower back.
That's a good question. When I speak to them on the phone, I usually see it as an other, so it's outside of me. However, there have been times where I felt something in me and I didn't feel like it was me. And that's when I'll think maybe there's something going on with the other person. And one example of that was a woman who's actually in my office. And I was doing acupressure points on her feet. And I can't remember what she was there for, headache or something, but I got to a point on her foot and I felt this sudden, like very sharp nausea in my stomach, where I felt like I wanted to throw up. I wasn't going to, but I felt really strong nausea. And I asked her, I said, how's your stomach doing? And she was quiet. And she said, why? And I said, I wonder, are you feeling anything in your stomach at all? And her eyes got big, and she said, well, that's really funny, because it was in the afternoon when I was seeing her. But she said, that's funny, this morning I got up and I must have eaten something. I threw up, and then I forgot about it because it was done. It was gone. And I don't know if that was still something that I was feeling, if I was sensing their energy, but I remember I felt it in my stomach. And I had not had any nausea or anything. There was nothing I'd eaten that would have warranted me feeling that. But there was a parallel going on with her energetically when I do that. So sometimes it is a process of teasing out what's mine and what's theirs when I feel it in me. But when I see it, it's a little clearer that it's probably something going on with them. And when I'm talking to them on the phone, many times I might see or sense like a felt sense in them as what I have in my mind as an image.
Well, when you said that, it's jogging my memory. Now, I've never worked with this a lot because I don't work in a physical health profession, though I've dabbled with it a little bit. I'm recalling that sometime, I don't know when or where, Swami Rama describing that intuitive diagnosis, one of the bases of the intuitive diagnosis is the 61 points exercise that we do in part as either as a standalone exercise or as a part of the entry into yoga nidra. And that these energy points, if you are aware of those energy points, those can be used as a sort of mirror imaging to do a diagnosis of the other people. And so when you were saying what you just were a moment ago, that memory came to my mind of Swamiji explaining that.
I remember him saying that about.
Remember that? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea where to go with that. It's just when you were saying what you were saying is what popped into my mind, that your description sounds similar to what it sounds like an application of the process he was suggesting.
Perhaps. I've not connected 1 points, though that's one of my favorite exercises, and I, for many, many years, did that daily before lunch for whatever reason. I don't do it daily anymore, but I find that it was an exercise that absolutely allows you to go through your own body. And no doubt it was the basis of many of my now understanding of where symptoms come from, because I would observe myself of where I was every time I would hit a particular part of my body where I had issues. And so I would, and Swamiji used to say, pay attention to where your mind goes off. Whenever you hit a particular point, if your mind disappears at that point or wants to go somewhere, or you have something that you keep thinking about when you hit that spot in your body, pay attention to that, because we're going to be connected to.
And maybe your body part picked up on or was the receiver of the woman client you were mentioning, where you were on her foot and suddenly you asked her about stomach. That was the moment in what you were saying that it caused me to remember that and throw the question back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the energetic connections that we have never ceases to amaze me, and I've been exploring a lot more the impact that thoughts have and how they travel even over distance. So when somebody's calling me on the phone, obviously I'm speaking to them, but there's other times I'll sit in the morning and I'll have somebody come to my mind visually, and I don't know what it is that they need, but I'll ask, why have you come, or what do you need? And then I'll feel something going on with them and just work with them right there in my home, not even without saying anything to them. And so there's something about thoughts and energetics. Swamiji used to say that, we're connected to the heart, regardless of distance, that there's no space when we're connected that way, and that thoughts can travel any distance without time. It's like instantaneous. You can have a thought of someone.
And the thought pulse or burst can be independent of or prior to language. So it may not even be in words, and it's still a thought burst.
Right. Pre-language.
Yeah, pre-language, good term, yeah.
And
cool.
It would be considered in that energetic field where it's hard to put your finger on something because it's a little more slippery. It moves around. It's like the emotions that have not become tangible prior to actually having a thought that's clear. There's the energetics of it that's there, and that can go in any direction, as we know. And so the way we can become more aware of those different energetics is by following the symptoms back and saying, what are those energetic patterns that we have, even pre-thought.
And so this process that you're talking about right now still is a part of what's going on in step 2.
Yes.
Cool.
I mean, the process of like doing the thought stuff, that wasn't something that I was necessarily referring to as step 2, but it could be. Step 2 is more for me when I have people walking through that, is to understand what about their life reminds them of those symptoms.
Uh-huh.
Because when you get a piece of that, for instance, the woman that had sciatica going down her leg who said phrases like, I can't put my foot down. Well, those phrases are really important to understand what's going on in her particular situation. I won't obviously reveal anything about her identity, but she had a circumstance where every year in the fall and spring, she had to do certain events. And it was a family obligation. And there was no way for her to get out of it because of her position in the society.
So she couldn't put her foot down and say no.
Exactly. And she said that in her words, but she didn't connect the two initially. And then when I said, what about your life reminds you of all of that after she had described the sciatica, she just stopped and said, oh my gosh, it feels like this. And it was all of those two things that happened in the spring and fall for her. And so that then leads us into step 3. And there's more we can explore on step 2. That sometimes for some people feels like, well, I don't really know if that's it or not, or maybe it's tied to this, maybe it's not. But, you know, even for things that you look at a diagnosis and somebody says, let's say I have cancer and there's something going on and it's in the brain and it's got all these little tentacles going everywhere. They've shown me pictures of it. It's, you know, it's not clearly defined. And then connect that to their life saying, oh my gosh, I'm in a situation where I have people that are gossiping about me and I don't know who's saying what, and it feels like it's all over. And it happened ever since this started in my life because of something going on. And I've had those kinds of people from my office too, where it feels like you think that's related. Well, of course, I do. I have to maintain the possibility of it because there's something about both of them are described that seem to match for me, but ultimately it's the person inside of the body who is going to be able to say, yeah, that really feels like a fit. That's where it's coming from.
Can you make another introductory comment on step 3? Maybe it's just me, but I kind of dropped out what step 3 was. Can you get me reoriented?
Step 3, I hadn't done yet. Step
oh,
1.
I see. Okay, you started. Okay, that's why I didn't know it. You said, okay, now we're going to talk about step 3, and we hadn't actually gotten there yet.
Not yet. So step
So
1
I'll be quiet and I'll be quiet and be patient.
Well, step 1 is identifying all of the language, all the things around those pieces. Step 2 then is what about my life reminds me of all of that. And again, you can go back and forth, toggle back and forth as you learn more things about step 1, add it back to step 2 and vice versa. Then going to step 3 is to look at the pieces in all of what you found in step 2 that may connect to your life. Step 3 is to go into that and see, is there anything about those pieces that I can adjust to change the energetics of it, to change how I feel about it. Now, it's really important to know that when you come to step 2 and you say, what about my life reminds me about that, not to judge yourself. Because I had one instance where a person was in my office and this is obviously very emotional for people sometimes because they start to feel like there's something that they've not been able to talk about that's being held by their symptoms. And in this case, it was a marriage that was not going well, but in their family and everybody else, nobody knew there were problems. And he felt it was absolutely falling apart. And this matched what her symptoms were, where she would describe and use words like, it feels like it's falling apart. There's nothing I can do. I can't put it back together. And there's things that aren't working anymore, and I can't take steps forward. And it resonated with her around the issues of her marriage. And so knowing that when those things come up, that you really have to let there be a place and just acknowledge that that's how you're feeling for yourself, and not to be hard on yourself because you were feeling it before you knew where it from. But now that you've connected the dots, you can feel that, yes, that is something that I feel, and acknowledge it just to yourself to start with. Doesn't mean you have to go to your boss and say, hey, I realize you're a jerk and I'm tired of how you're treating me. You might lose your job. It doesn't mean you have to go home and say to your husband, hey, this is it, I'm done because, I've been having trouble with this all along. But it does mean now to take a look at that area of your life and say, what about that work can I rework? What can I change? What can I shift? Maybe doing some work with somebody in therapy, doing one-on-one work to see what can I start to change to make that energetic shift so that these symptoms no longer showing up as a way of holding that energy.
Have you done any work with that now that you're talking about now in the context of what Swami Rama used to refer to as introspection, as using the introspection of that object, of that memory. It's what in Yoga Sutras Patanjali refers to as samyama, which is the combination of dhanana, dhyana, samadhi, where you actually literally use as your object of deep meditation the samskara, the attraction, aversion, fear, memory itself, so that you essentially do samadhi on that to reveal it and get free from it. Do you teach your people how to do that kind of deep meditation on the object?
I
or
have
you
not.
do it interactively with them?
I do it more interactively with them. For many people, I'd even say most people, if I could, the idea, or I guess I'd say many, the idea that these symptoms really can be something that is going on energetically, connected to something going on energetically in my life. For many, that's a new idea that, wow, I might have some control over this, or I might be able to actually affect this or make a difference with this. So I haven't, obviously I've taught meditation before, and there are some people I'll go into a little bit more depth with that. Most people, once they start making that connection, can go back into their life and make some tangible changes or some shifts with that. If there's things that are a little bit deeper, I think that would go into what could be even a fourth step, I guess, of like how to then resolve or affect or shift or burn some scars that we've brought with us, because many times those energetic patterns may come from some scars that are from earlier or other lives, even of things that we've gotten ourselves tangled into.
Yeah, the even subtler aspects of yoga.
Right. So, when I have somebody, then after we do this process and I get them on the table, what I like about doing the acupuncture follow-up is that energetically it starts to move things, and it causes this kind of synergy of what they're doing in their mind with what we're doing energetically in the body and the energetics field. And I feel sometimes it can just help people to shift a little faster when they have those kinds of things, or if they had massage done and have that kind of process, or some kind of body work a little bit.
Good.
So I don't know if we've had any questions. I know it's probably, what time is it? 1:45 or so. If people have questions.
Anybody have a question or observation? Anybody here? If I can speak for myself in response to listening what you're saying, not seeing any comments there and not hearing any questions from the room around me, it's very interesting and fascinating the way you're describing the process with which you work to people. And maybe part of it is a matter of this sinking in a little bit of what you're saying.
What strikes me,
Matri is coming to life over there from the couch.
Because I was just indeed taking it in. I thought, let me hear the whole
Can
process.
you hear her?
I'm just turning it up here a little bit.
Can you come over here, Mom, so she can hear you a little bit better off the couch?
Off the couch. What I maybe it's just more of a comment than a question. Get out of it. Is that what strikes me is that the process of internal dialogue, of tapping into inner wisdom, and we know, but not a lot of people know that the symptoms are a revelation of the inner world, and that most of the diseases are psychosomatic. I mean, I've seen that written by Swami Rama many times. And so the way you have been able to make this available, I find very inspiring, because we try so hard also for people to play with these questions and to make these relation in their own laboratory, because this is and it helps if they know themselves, because on the outside we can give and give and do, but if it doesn't click on the inside. So that's what I thought that was just very joyful to hear. It was how
it's
you've
sort of
been
like
able
facilitating
an internal dialogue.
Yeah,
and making the inner connections. And so that's just very joyful to hear. And then I bet indeed it works, and people learn a lot from it and discover how these are all working together. And then, of course, depending on who you have in front of you, how far can you go? We have some people that are as psychologists or doctors, and you get the people in front of you, and not everyone is Atta in a sense of really diving into Samyama, as you brought that into the story. And so how to offer this all in common, everything is in yoga, you said, so but how to bring it to those into what stage they are ready. So that's what it just, I'm just maybe completely just saying back what you're saying, but it's really beautiful here. So
well, thank you.
Yeah,
it's a joy to hear you describing doing this in this kind of way.
Thank you.
I think that's the beauty of acupuncture. It's one of my favorite ways that I have a lady in Holland that treats me for free because she knows I'm a monk, and so whenever I have something physical, I go to her, and she doesn't do it as elaborate as you do. So but she is onto these connections better than.
But she sticks you with a pin.
Eventually, yes, but also, having troubles with. For one time I went with periods, and last time I asked you something about that privately. Also, she would go into a little bit of what you're doing, but not as systematically. So I can imagine also for other people in your field who chose acupuncture as a way to be of service to people, because they are aware that nadis have an influence on the physical symptoms, and then you can elaborate them to even say, well, the mind is even prior to that. I think that would be also very inspiring just for people with the same profession.
Well, it's interesting because they are connected, and many times you'll see like women who have hysterectomies because of issues going on with their uterus. The energetics maybe hasn't disappeared when they take the uterus out, and so then they end up getting breast issues. And
yes.
There's the same energetic pattern or something going on around the feminine things. And
because the kleshas don't change. I mean, that's basically what the kleshas, they declare the some.
Right. Well, and if you can take one, you take one thing out, it's like if the energy's still there, it still has to go somewhere. It has to connect to something. And so, when you I love that you brought up the internal dialogue, because Swamiji used to say so many times over and over, learn to talk to yourself, learn to counsel yourself. And this process,
of course, talk to your samskaras.
Right, talk to your samskaras. Don't let somebody else catch you doing it, or they might try to medicate you.
Yeah.
So when you do the work, that I shared here, isn't something that's necessarily a part of acupuncture. I just started doing it more because when I had acupuncture some 25 years ago or so, for the first time, I wish someone had walked me through a process or helped me process what was going on. And the process I'm sharing with you now actually started for me back when I was at the Himalayan Institute, when Swamiji was there, and I was taking yoga classes and doing the graduate coursework with David Coulter, and realized, and this is where it applies to other things that you would do. For instance, if you went into, let's say, a spinal twist, pay attention to where you have something that feels uncomfortable or something, however the whole feels. All the words you can use to describe it, all the feelings you have that come up, the images that come to your mind, all of that, and you ask, what about my life does this remind me of? You can work with those poses as a way to also work with those things that are going on in your life. It's like it just enriches so much of that exploration to connect the dots as you're doing that. So
yeah, I quite like the way in which you put in very simple language your three-part process, the way that you describe that. Raj has posted a comment here. He starts by saying there's no question, but maybe that prompts something. But just to comment that internal dialogue is so powerful practice that has helped me immensely.
Yes, Swamiji really emphasized that as a way of counseling yourself. And, I think you can work with it in a waking state. You can work with it when you're doing that. You can also do it when you're in a dream state. And Swamiji used to talk about that, saying, if you can learn then to lucid dream and become awake when you're dreaming, you can then also master and fulfill so many desires, and you don't have to waste your time doing it when you're awake. It's a lot faster.
And that's what we have right here with our conscious mind and the stuff going on in the unconscious. And there's the samskaras and the seeds that are coming forward.
And even here,
what? And even over there too. We've got
In a
it.
different way.
You do a great person by giving the conscious mind such a big space there. They must be somebody who's really practicing yoga.
It's a really friendly map indeed.
Yeah, well,
He would draw the conscious mind, he'd make it so tiny, and then he'd go a big unconscious circle.
well, I noticed that when he would draw
I
this,
say that
when
too.
he would draw this on the blackboard from time to time, it changed ever so slightly over years. And where I personally have come out on that observation that you made, Ragani, that this looks pretty big, is that it's because of our ego, and this is matching where most of us are most of the time. We think of this being the big part of me, and over there, there's this little bitty part of the unconscious. And if you did it the other way, this part over here would be absolutely huge. It'd be off the chart. And there'd be this little bitty circle here called me.
And then the body's even smaller.
And the body's even smaller. And none of us would like that. None of the egos would like that at all, is my guess. It's like, no, you're making me very, very small.
And insignificant.
And insignificant, as it were. And I'm important. You know what's coming to mind, Ragani, after hearing you walk us through this three-part sequence that you use with people? Maybe it's a good place to pause and give this some food for thought. And if you want to follow through it another time with a different conversation, either a step 4 or another way or something in which you apply this or anything, we can do it again if you want. But we can go on if you want, but it's just seeming like you've done a nice job of helping us understand where you're coming from with the acupuncture, but in the context of the way you described the 3-stage process that you go through with people.
Right. I think it's a good topic. That's a lot of information to digest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we'll say thank you. And
thank you.
Say thank you.
Thank you, Ragani.
Then I says thank you. And,
for having me.
And thank you for playing. And to be continued, hopefully, in some form or another. And let's see what Jackie has to say. I love the idea of following a tangible process to address the energetics. I've been working very hard to address the recent thyroid autoimmune label I received on a physical level, diet supplementation. But I'm interested and intrigued now to address more from an energetic standpoint. I already have ideas, but I have to be careful to not blame myself for bringing this on. Boy, isn't there a big one?
Maybe blame is really key, because a lot of people will have that same feeling of the shame or the blame that I caused this myself, and that's
maybe that would be a part of something you can ponder on, Ragani, and see if you think that some conversation about shame and blame in a therapeutic environment, maybe somehow that would be something that would be a natural follow through.
We could play the blame game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
There might be a whole session to follow with that, but certainly those are things that a lot of people, when they come up with symptoms, they'll feel, and it's a natural thing to feel. But
yeah, and what Jackie said there prompted me now to think. A natural question coming into my mind is, what would it be like for me to be in a session with you? And so what it doing the way you approach there. So that conversation could be about, I don't know what it is, the therapeutic relationship between this approach to acupuncture and the client, or something like that. And I'm saying that just as food for thought too, because you've started an interesting, fascinating dialogue with us, and some people are curious and interested, and so maybe it can go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And maybe it will help you sort out some of your own thinking to write the book you said you're wanting to write.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to talk you into anything. It's just sort of an afterthought, kind of a closing comment. And there's that smile and the laughter.
Sounds good to me.
All righty. So let's let it close there. And Raj says, I will allow Raj to speak for all of us very simply. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for playing, Ragani.
My pleasure.